Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Noor, and today we are continuing with the series Instilling Independence in Learning. Today we are going to focus on open-ended play. I think last time we touched upon importance of play, but today we'll be deep diving into open-ended play. I will be showing you some of the toys that I have in my home, which which will help you hopefully to decide what kind of toys you should pick and which toys are good examples of open-ended toys and which toys are not good examples of open-ended toys. So, but before we get into that, we will first explore some of the reasons why you should facilitate this kind of play, the open-ended activities or play, or why should you invest in these kind of resources. So basically, why is it good for this age group? I think we touched upon the neuroscience aspect last time and we focused on early education. But today I would stretch the age limit to a much, this is a much broader age range. I would say it goes up to even the age of 9 or even 10, I would say. Because my son, my eldest, he still plays with it. Like he still does the pretend play, and I think it's great. He does it a lot lesser than he used to do earlier. And especially this year, I have seen that he is not as keen as my younger one, with some of the things. But for the most part, he is still playing, and it's great. And I don't want it to stop. Okay, so how do you know if something is an open-ended toy? The first thing to note is that an open-ended toy is generally not too specific. What do I mean by that? So the toy itself doesn't tell you out and out that this is my purpose, okay? I think I mentioned this example last time, that a mobile phone replica is probably an inferior toy in comparison to Play-Doh. And I would again go back to the same example, that a mobile phone replica is not an open-ended toy because it is very specific. It is saying that I am a pretend phone, and a child is supposed to just pretend to be talking on this phone when it's playing with it, basically, right? So it is very specific. Now, what happens when something is too specific? It is not going to allow the child, it's at least going to discourage the child from using their own imagination. So that's why you may see that, these kind of toys, as gimmicky and as attractive as they make it, a child can only play with it for a few minutes and then they're done. They will press a few buttons, laugh, giggle, whatever, and then just throw it away and move on to the next thing. So because they're just too specific, the children don't get to own the play when they're playing with it. They know what it's for, and then they're just done, basically. Now compare that with something like a set of blocks, like a wooden set of blocks. Now, what are the things that a child can do with a set of wooden blocks? For example, a child may come and stack these wooden blocks one on top of the other and build a tower. Okay? After some time, you may find the same child lining these up in a row and calling it a street or a road or whatever. The same wooden blocks can be put together in form of a house, okay, or something else, or you can, those block sets which have certain shapes, they can stack it in a way to make it look like a tree, or it could be humans. The toy is not too specific. So when the child is playing with it, they are free to use they feel that invitation, from the toy, that okay, I am here and I can own it and I can use my imagination and make it whatever I want it to be in the situation. Okay, so they do foster that imagination, and they can be used in multiple ways. So that's how you know that this is an open-ended toy. Okay, now this dramatic or imaginative or pretend play or whatever you want to call it, why is this so important? If you think about it, this is something that I think I touched upon even last time, and maybe I'll give you a few things today to think about. Now, this kind of imaginative play actually helps children develop socially and emotionally. Now, how does that help? What does that have to do with social and emotional development? So, when the children are using their imagination, you may see that they actually take on roles. Okay? So, they will assign roles to some things in front of them, like a toy will be assigned a role or a name or a character. They will be playing a character, they will be playing a role. Okay? Um, and when they play a role or they assign a role to some object, they are defining that role. I don't know how I can put this. Um, okay, another example. So when they are playing the role of a mom or a dad or a police officer or anything, they are defining that person's role in a specific way. They're defining boundaries around those roles. And then when they're playing it out, when they're role playing, they are staying within those boundaries. Okay, so you may hear them talk in a certain manner, use certain kind of language, and basically define boundaries around those characters which they will not cross. Okay, and then they will role play, they'll play it out. Okay, now while they're doing all of these things, they are in control of that situation. So when they're playing, they are totally in control of their circumstances. That entire setup, that entire world they create around them, they are totally in control, and they are playing these roles, and these roles are defined, and they have set certain boundaries for each of these roles. And then they are emotionally and socially, with whoever they are playing with, they have a certain kind of exchange. And this, all of this inspiration is coming from the real world that they observe around them. So let's say they see mom cooking in the kitchen. So a little girl would pretend that she's this mom who's playing in her little play kitchen, and imagining that I'm cooking and I'm supposed to do this, and all of this inspiration may be coming from the real life. And then when they're playing all of these roles and they're doing all of these things, what they're doing is they are rehearsing what happens in the real world. How adults behave, that's what they're trying to imitate. But obviously they are not, by doing this over and over again, they are actually rehearsing to become adults. This is how they learn to control themselves. This is how they learn self-control. Actually, there's a term for this. There is something called as executive function. And executive function is basically, in very simple language, kind of like self-regulation, like staying on task and not leaving that task and going to another one until they're done. All of these adult skills that we need come from this executive function. And it is said that this is a higher marker, it's a bigger indicator of future success, far more than EQ and IQ. So you want this to develop in a child. The executive function has to develop in a child, right? And they develop this through this role play. Okay, so again, going back to why we want to play with open-ended toys, because they let their imagination run wild. Why do we want them to imagine things? Because it's good for them. When they do role play and imaginative play, it is going to help them stay on the play for a long time, take on roles, set boundaries, and rehearse the real world stuff. I have also noticed that when they have any kind of traumatic experience or a difficult experience, or something that really caught their attention, you will see them playing that out in their play, in their imaginative play. They will recreate that situation in their play and act it out. I remember when we first experienced a tornado, when we moved to North Texas. My children, for many days, they were playing that out. They were pretending there's a tornado coming and all of these stuffed animals are trying to hide, and they're taking shelter, and they're looking for a storm cellar and all these things. So when they went through that experience, that trauma or that I don't know if I can call it trauma, but that strong experience or that emotion that they felt where they needed to process it better, that came in their play. And they kept playing that thing over and over again until they had, I think they developed some kind of deeper understanding about that whole experience, but they kept doing it and it kept coming up in their play. So I am, it's I would think that this is an emotionally calming experience. This, like I mentioned last time, the self-talk that happens when they imaginatively play is very soothing. It's very, it makes them feel in control. It gives them that emotional, intelligence to handle future events of that kind or any other kind for that matter. So all of this stuff is very important. Okay, so you want to make room for open-ended imaginative play. All right. So also another thing that happens is, because open-ended toys don't specifically have a right or wrong way to play with them, they are very flexible kind of toys. If you think about magnet tiles or a set of blocks or playing with blankets, playing with pillows, there's no right or wrong way. So it encourages them to take some risks. They are able to go ahead and try something totally different, totally out of box. It fosters that kind of out of the box thinking, that creative thinking, which is very important for them. In the future, in the future, they say that people with creativity are going to be valued, because it's information age is, we are living in the information age. There is no shortage of information. You can get any piece of information with the click of a button. So in the future, probably they're going to need people who have imagination, who have creativity, who can solve problems, who can think outside the box, who have this divergent thinking and this uniqueness to them. So you will be facilitating all of that through this kind of play. Okay, so that's another thing. Now, now I want you to understand that for this kind of open-ended play, you don't have to necessarily buy things or invest in very expensive kind of toys. You need fewer toys. And actually it's said that kids who have fewer toys have a deeper experience with the toys than kids who have too many, and then they are too distracted by them and they don't stay on one toy for too long. So you want to have fewer but more of the open-ended, meaningful kind of toys, which can give them that deeper engagement with them. Now, your household items, again, can be counted as open-ended toys. Last time I mentioned about the Lazy Susan, the turntable thing, cardboard boxes, anything that comes in that you recycle can be great means of open-end, because they don't tell you what you're supposed to do with them. The children can just take their imagination and turn a cardboard box into anything that they want. Your blankets in the house, any kind of blankets, scarves, clothespin, they can build a tent with it, they can build a house, they can play house with it, whatever they want. Even outside in nature, like things like sticks and leaves, dried leaves. Fall season is great. They just love playing with those leaves. I have some very fond memories with fall season, when my son would go out and really play. We don't have much of a fall season here, but when we lived up north, my eldest would really enjoy the fall season with the leaves and everything, and he would play with the leaf pile for quite some time, and I used to let him play like that. Another thing with nature. Okay, so I don't know if I should touch on this, but basically when you go out in nature, the children really benefit from, first of all, time outdoors, because it's filled with that, filled with opportunities for open-ended play. I know there is a growing concept of forest schools, and there is a local place here where they do this kind of, they encourage this kind of play, open-ended play out in the nature, basically. So basically, these were some of the reasons I briefly touched upon, which hopefully motivates you to facilitate this kind of open-ended play. Now, I also shared some examples, some simple examples with you. Now I am going to show you what I have in my house. So here are some examples of open-ended toys. This is called as Jenga blocks. I actually do not remember how it's supposed to be played with, but they get used in multiple ways. So I have like a lot of different wooden block sets. This is not the only one. I have like many different sets, some with different shapes, some with standard shapes, and and this one I really can't remember what it was supposed to do, but basically the children use it in many different ways, because all it is just blocks of wood. And we have used it for even when they do reenactment of something, they use it, like when they did this like 2.5 years ago, and I think just last week when we were talking about war strategy, they remembered this thing that they had built with the Jenga blocks and with Lego blocks. They basically built a siege tower with the Lego blocks and a wall, the wall of the city with the Jenga blocks, and then they used the siege tower to break into the wall. And they had built a ramp and things like that. So these kind of things come in handy for even that kind of stuff. And obviously they are open-ended because you could use the blocks in several different ways. Here's another example of an open-ended toy. This one's called as a Tinker Toy. It's a Tinker Toy set, and I think it's a classic toy. What I really like about this set is even though it's made with plastic, it has really good quality plastic. And one thing you want to keep in mind when you are focused on building the children's attention is that you want to buy toys that are frustration free. If you buy toys that get stuck often, or they are something that constantly requires the child to come to you and feel dependent on you, then you're not going to achieve the very thing that you're trying to achieve with these things. So you want to make sure that they are easy, they snap out easily, and it's age appropriate. So this toy, it has all these pieces and they can be joined together in several ways, and I think you can build pretty much anything with this. It's such a good toy, and I don't think it looks like it can do a lot, but believe it or not, like, this is my youngest child's favorite toy. I didn't know about this toy when I had my older one, but I bought it after I had my second one. So this is a favorite. This is just an amazing. There is another one which is great. These are called as magnet tiles, and all they have is like they're just tiles. Some are rectangle, some are triangle. I don't have the full set right now with me. I think it's somewhere upstairs. I couldn't find it. I just found a few pieces, and basically you have all these different shapes that you can connect because there is a magnet around the edges. So they can be put together in the shape of a house. You can really use it in several different ways. And again, this is a good example of an open-ended toy. This is a domino set, and this set has these ladder shaped things and some circle. I don't know if I added this from somewhere else I bought, or maybe this was a part of it. I know the ladder was definitely a part of it, but some of these things I may have added it. But basically, whenever I find some loose pieces which can complement something else, then I do add them. I also try to keep like small, like I have these small drawer bin where I keep rubber bands and clips, clothespin, and those type of things handy, because they like to I want them to be able to use things to attach things together or build something, and like basically extend their play. So anything that is going to facilitate this stuff and help them put things together, you can supply them. Something like rubber bands is like pretty harmless, and clothespin and things like that. Now here's something that you can buy from random stores. This was actually part of a mat. An old mat was kind of ripped, so I saved these pieces, the sticks from it, and I upcycle things. Whenever I see something interesting, I save them. And you would be amazed, once you start doing this, you will be able to spot things in your house, or go through your recycle bin and find stuff that can be reused. So this is another thing. It's just a bunch of sticks that came from an old mat, or you can have them collect sticks from the backyard or something. They make a great medium for open-ended play, or any kind of building together or fun things like that. Now here's another toy. I think I bought this online. It has these things that I think gears, and anything that moves is a lot of fun for kids. I think once you start buying this kind of stuff, you'll develop an eye for it. I can tell you what this product, I think it's called Giorello Tech or something. It's an Italian product, but I don't think the product matters. You just have to see the reviews. Make sure it's not something that frustrates the child. Something has bad reviews, even if it's cheap, I wouldn't buy it, because it's just going to get the child frustrated. So these type of toys, they can be pricey, but check the reviews and invest in them, because they really last for a long time, and they really do help them play well. So I'm pretty sure this was about $45 or something, which is pricey for for a toy like this. But I have had this for, I think, 5 years. Most of the toys that I'm showing you here have been with me for more than 5 years. So they do last a long time if you look for a good quality product, and you, like I said earlier, fewer toys but better quality toys is better than having a lot of plastic junk in your house. So this is another one. And I forgot to mention this you can, with these kind of toys, you can build several things. You can build a bridge, you can build a vehicle, you can build anything, you can build a robot, whatever fancies their imagination, you can put together with these kind of toys. So just look for things that have different like an assortment of different kinds of pieces which fit easily together and which can be taken apart easily. That should be your criteria with building. Here is another nice toy. This is a marble run, and even though this can only be used to build a marble run, I would say it's still a great toy. This does not get played as much with as compared to some of the other ones that I showed earlier. And you can understand now, you can have an appreciation for what I mentioned earlier about a toy being too specific. Like whenever it's specific, it somehow gets used less. The more it is not specific, it's the children really play more with it, because they can use their imagination. So this is, even though this is a great toy, it is kind of specific. You can only build a marble run with it. But what I like about this toy is they can build it in several different ways, and they can see how it's how the marble is going through it. So it's a nice investment. But again, I just wanted to point out that subtle difference between this toy and some of the other ones that I just showed you, and how those tend to lend themselves more beautifully with their imagination and their building and their random thoughts. If they want to put together something, those come in handy as against this one. Now I do want to show you some of the toys that are not open-ended. This is an example. This is a remote controlled robot type, I don't know, car or whatever it is. This is not an open-ended toy. This is a very specific toy. You have to play with it in a specific way. So obviously, this, I just wanted to highlight, what's the difference between this one and some of the other ones that I just showed. Here's another example of a toy which is not open-ended. This is a drone, and the kids really love this toy because, they just like everything that moves and it flies and stuff. But this is not an open-ended toy. This is a specific kind of a toy, and I know that this is not going to be something that they will play for like 5 years. They will play with it for a few months, and probably it's going to be, they'll be done with it, or it will break. But again, even if they like a certain toy, that doesn't mean it's open-ended. And I'm not saying that you should only be buying open-ended toys. You can have some of the toys of this kind, but just know the educational value of the things you're buying. So I think that's about it. I have a lot of other toys and a lot of other things that I can show you, but I think this should be enough to demonstrate what I explained earlier. One important thing to note is that once they take to this kind of a play, they will start combining different toys. So they will probably not stick with one. They will start using a combination of things from your kitchen, different toys being put together, different items. Maybe they'll run to the garage and bring something from the recycle bin. They'll bring something from their classroom. Like, they do that kind of stuff. And I know it gets difficult, to manage that. And that's something that I struggle with. But I do feel that it's valuable when they do that. So just something to note. I hope that was of benefit to you. I will see you next time with the next video. And the next video will be about self-correcting activities, or a Montessori concept called as the control of error. So I will see you next time, guys. Thank you.